Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. Uh, and many thanks to everyone who will join either later on or will watch this video after stream ends. Today is 25th of August. Now it's 12 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. And dear friends, as you know, our community is from all over the world, from New Zealand and Australia to India, China, Japan, from Russia, but very few. But nevertheless, also Europe, North America, South America, Africa, and therefore I'm constantly trying to find the time that will be most convenient for majority of community. It's difficult. It's difficult if possible at all. But nevertheless, whole this week I will experiment with the 12-hour stream. With stream that will start at the 12 instead of 11 as it was previously. Hopefully this will work a little better. We will find out. I need at least a week to have some stats on that. So that's the change. That's why I'm starting at 12 today. And well, as always, I have prepared a news segment, dear friends, with some major news on major developments that Russian media and public is paying attention to and talking about. Hopefully you will like the video, find it interesting and useful, and if so, please like the video, click that like button, and leave some commentary after the stream. It might help actually to deal with the algorithm and potentially reach wider audience. At least in that case, maybe members of our community will receive notification from YouTube, for example, that there is a new video on the channel. When you are in shadow ban, well, it is extremely difficult to develop the channel, and I know it firsthand. Nevertheless, as always, I have a news segment. After that, I will join community chat for a little while. And if there will be any donations during the stream or super chat on Rumble, of course, I will highlight that. And if you have a question or topic that you want definitely to be discussed during the stream, you're more than welcome to send your question and comment. As I said, if it's sent through some support platforms, then I'll definitely would not miss it. My wife Anya will let me know about it. And also in the chat, by the way, on both channels, on YouTube and Rumble, you can just use capital letters to make it little easier to spot your question or the comment that is directed to me. And so, yes, this is it for intro. I was a bit late today for a minute or two because of the last minute cigarette to calm nerves down, because no matter how many live streams I did, it is always quite a nerve-breaking, isn't it? Because you want to be focused on the news, do interesting program, don't start ranting about as I do sometime, even though some members of our community actually like when I'm going off and becoming emotional. But nevertheless, it is a nerve-breaking, always, to me at least. Maybe not for everyone, but to me it is the case. But nevertheless, let me start a new segment now, dear friends. And first reporter is from RIA Novosti news agency, which is based on and report is based on Russian Defense Ministry's latest update that air defense systems on duty intercepted 21 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO to strike deep into Russian territory. And specifics are that 7 drones were intercepted in the Smolensk region, 6 drones over the Bryansk region, in Oryol and Moscow regions, 3 drones each. In Kaluga and Tver regions, 1 drone each. This is nighttime, by the way, from 2300 hours yesterday late evening up to 7 in the morning today. I guess during the previous day or two, Kyiv regime and their NATO backers wasted all their, or majority of their drones. And last night, they did not use as many as they do on regular basis. Of course, air defense systems were prepared for deal with this threat, and majority of drones were intercepted. No reports at this point about casualties on the ground or more or less significant damage, but if any update on that, of course, during the day, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X page, and also in next updates. Dear friends, yesterday I reported that as a result of yesterday's relatively large-scale drone strikes deep into Russian territory that was orchestrated by NATO, Kursk nuclear power plant was targeted. One of the drones were intercepted right next to nuclear power plant, and as a result of either fail of debris of this drone or drone strike, fire erupted on transformator of the nuclear power plant. IAEA, International Atomic Energy Agency, was informed about it, but response from IAEA was very poor to say the least. Never ever IAEA criticized this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky for targeting Russian nuclear power plants. Zaporozhye MPP is constantly under attacks, but IAEA never actually pointed finger at the Kiev regime, and they did the same in regards to Kursk nuclear power plant. Response from IAEA was that, well, they are informed about this attack on IAEA, but they have no information to confirm which side did it. I mean, how crazy is that? They are implying, basically, while not pointing at the Kiev regime, that it's somehow Russia targets its own nuclear power plants. It's crazy, isn't it? It's insane. And I even questioned yesterday and many times before why Russia is still member of this criminal, basically at this point, organization that IAEA is, right? A criminal organization that is run by Israeli secret services, US secret services, and British secret services. It's no longer should be considered as a UN body. And I hope Russian leadership will make some decisive steps in this regard. Either IAEA has to change and all its leadership has to be replaced, or we should leave this freaking organization. And well, maybe this topic is being considered by Kremlin, because we have this report from TASS news agency that Russian permanent representative in Vienna, capital of Austria, stated that IAEA has responded vaguely to a Ukrainian armed forces attack on Kursk nuclear power plant. Moscow is not happy with the policies of the IAEA, with the actions of the IAEA. Let me give you a little more details on that. The reaction of the International Atomic Energy Agency to the night attack by drone of the armed forces of Ukraine on the Kursk nuclear power plant was unclear. This opinion was expressed by the permanent representative of Russia to the international organizations in Vienna, Mikhail Ulyanov. And also he went to say that the IAEA previously reported that it had not recorded in an increase in radiation levels around the Kursk MPP. The agency added that it was aware of publications about the attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces. They did not say Ukrainian armed forces, by the way. This is TASS news agency is adding up now. But what IAEA did say is that they did not have independent confirmation of what happened. Really? That's all they have to say? As always, and this is a quote from Russian diplomat, as always, the IAEA is very, how should I say this word, by the way? VAGUE, vague or vogue in its coverage of Ukrainian attack on nuclear infrastructure facilities. The diplomat wrote on X, and yet again, I hope Moscow will reconsider its current stand in regards to IAEA, also PCW, and there are a number of other so-called international organizations that are actually run not by actually UN members, but by secret services of Israel, US, and UK. And either Moscow will demand immediate reforms in these organizations and the change of whole leadership, or Moscow should withdraw from membership there, because it's just nonsensical at this point. These organizations are used against Russia on regular basis. And not just against Russia, against other countries too. I remind you, dear friends, that IAEA, exactly day before Israel, the US attack on Iran, come up with a very controversial document that was then used, fake, which was based on false narratives, by the way, which one was then used by Israel and US to justify the attack on Iran. So clearly this is a criminal organizations, by the way, right? And we should not be part of it whatsoever. Either they should reform, or just let's leave it, and that's it. Many other countries will follow, I'm quite sure about it. Because countries in this world, by the way, definitely need a leader. And Russia can be that leader, by the way. Russia is already a leader, I will say, in the fight against the evil force that Western ruling class is, right? And Moscow's stance has to be more proactive, 100%, and world will embrace that. World will embrace that. TASS news agency is also reporting that Russian armed forces liberated Filia settlement in Dnipropetrovsk region. This information is confirmed by Defense Ministry, and I believe this is the sixth settlement, by the way, that was liberated in Dnipropetrovsk region. I'm not sure Western so-called media is even reporting on the progress of the Russian armed forces in Dnipropetrovsk direction, but well, at least members of our community know quite well, isn't it, what is going on the battlefield. Let me show you this settlement of Filia, dear friends. So it's a borderline village, borderline between Dnipropetrovsk region and the DPR, and this is the Filia settlement, small settlement, by the way, but nevertheless, right, this is Filia, and we also have additional information on the progress of the Russian armed forces in Dnipropetrovsk region on the southern side from Filia, and the Zaporozhye settlement. Zaporozhye settlement was liberated by Russian armed forces. This report is not yet confirmed by Defense Ministry about Zaporozhye settlement, but I guess either today or tomorrow, maybe day after, you know, Defense Ministry of Russia, they always take time to report about progress of the Russian armed forces. So in upcoming days, they will confirm progress of the Russian troops in Zaporozhye direction. Also, so progress of the Russian troops continues. Number of sources based on statements of Kyiv regime and Kyiv regime's propaganda are reporting that as a result of counteroffensive, that local scale counteroffensive that Kyiv regime's forces undertook in past a couple of days, they managed, it's their claim, by the way, they managed to re-establish control over the Mikhailovka, Zelyony Guy, and Vladimirovka in DPR. But yet again, no confirmations of this information from Russian side. This is just the claims that Kyiv regime's propaganda is sharing, and there are many channels in alternative media began reporting about it as it is a fact, which is a mistake in my opinion, because I don't understand how anybody can trust anything that comes out from Kyiv regime, period, right? So I'm reporting that this is a claim of Kyiv regime, but me personally, I don't believe that Kyiv regime had any progress. They might actually send their troops on suicidal missions, right? They do it constantly, literally on daily basis. And that's how they suffered their 1.7 million casualties since the beginning of special military operation, right? Killed and missing. If you add to that wounded, then overall casualty numbers will be around 3 million, 4 million potentially. You know, it's a tremendous numbers, isn't it? But nevertheless, even if counteroffensive was undertaken by Kyiv regime's forces, I don't believe they have any significant success on the line of contact. And until Russian sources will report about retreat or regroup of Russian troops from any of the direction, I'm not going to believe anything reported by enemy propaganda. But nevertheless, you know, there is a rumors on the internet, and therefore I'm sharing that information. What we know for sure, that is Filia and Zaporozhye settlements were liberated in Dnipropetrovsk region. Also, dear friends, We have this report from TASS News Agency. Head of DPR, Denis Pushilin, reported that units of the Russian armed forces are entering the outskirts of Konstantinovka in a DPR, one of the main strongholds that the Kiev regime still has in DPR, alongside the Pokrovsk-Mirnograd agglomeration and, of course, Kramatorsk-Slavyansk agglomeration. So Russian troops are entering the outskirts of Konstantinovka in a DPR. The head of the republic, Denis Pushilin, reported. We have a quote here from him, which is that wow, I have some technical issues with the browser. Seems like a Chrome browser. I had to stop using this browser, man. So we see the liberation of settlements in the Konstantinovka direction. We see that our groups are already entering there and sufficiently dispersing the enemy on the outskirts of the Konstantinovka itself. But the liberation of their settlement of Kleban Big was also important for us. Pushilin said on the air of Russia 24 TV channel, and I reported about liberation of Kleban Big yesterday, day before yesterday, I believe. So this is not coming as a surprise. And well, Pushilin is confirming that Russian troops are on the outskirts of Konstantinovka. Let me show you that village, by the way, that city actually, that town. So this is Konstantinovka settlement, quite a large town actually, and Russian troops are approaching from east and southern eastern sides, and soon we will see battles inside the city itself. It seems inevitable, and the Russian troops are already quite active, by the way, inside the Kupiansk. And for example, number of sources are reporting, based on videos that was shared on the public, that Russian troops actually in control of northern industrial zone, at least in partial control of northern industrial zone of Kupiansk, because video is circulating on internet. I cannot show you that video because of the casualties there, and it's a graphic footage, but approximately in this area, by the way, on the northern part of Kupiansk, Kiev regime's troops were trying to evacuate their wounded and killed military personnel that most likely end up in ambush of the Russian troops in this direction. Probably there was a close-range gun battle there, and if you take a look at the map, then if Russian troops were targeting enemy formation in this area, then all this industrial part then should be either in a gray zone or under Russian control, right? We already had reports that Russian DRGs were actively operating in Kupiansk, but maybe regular formations also entered this northern part of the city. We're going to find out, of course, in upcoming days, more details about that. Also, dear friends, let me share with you this report that well, open fire has been extinguished at Ust-Luga, a terminal that was targeted by Kiev regime as a result of yesterday night attacks. I reported about it in yesterday's live stream, and I shared my take on that attacks. More than 10 drones were intercepted, by the way, in Leningrad region. That's where this port is located. And yesterday, I shared my take on that I don't think these drones were launched by Kiev regime from I mean, yet again, what the hell is wrong with this? I don't think these drones were launched from Kiev controlled territory. Okay, it's just not working, by the way. Most likely drones to target Ust-Luga was launched from Estonia, Finland, or maybe some of the other Baltic states, because of the range, by the way. It's up to 1,000 kilometers from Kiev controlled territory to Ust-Luga. I don't believe Kiev regime did manage to, and NATO did manage to launch drones through either Russian territory or over Belarus without being detected. So most likely these drones were launched from either Finland or Estonia. And even though Russian officials are never made such a claim, I think Russian military intelligence is working active in this direction, and maybe information is being gathered. And when defense ministry will have enough confirmations, enough factual evidences, then, well, who knows when next strike will happen from these Baltic states, then Russia might retaliate and retaliate hard on them, right? While presenting to whole world that territories of these countries or waters of these countries were used for attacks against Russia, which is act of war. And when one country commits act of war, then another country definitely has every right to retaliate, isn't it? So, I mean, people in Baltic states and Finland and potentially Sweden should get ready, by the way, because their governments are allowing Ukrainian terrorists to use their territorial waters or the ground for drone attacks on Russia, and they should be ready for potential to be on receiving end of the Russian retaliation. Then, not the civilians, obviously, military assets of these countries, but they might actually trigger Moscow to take action. Also, dear friends, I have said there quite a few times in my previous updates that there is a war going on inside Russia, by the way, against corruption and corrupt officials. Real war, by the way. That was exactly what I was actually hoping for, that we will see true, very serious fight against corruption. And almost on daily basis, media is reporting that some corrupt officials were charged in this region and that region, and process is not stopping, by the way. It seems like Moscow is very keen to eliminate horizontal corruption, right? Which is definitely had to happen, by the way. If you have a horizontal corruption in a country, I mean, to eliminate corruption completely, it's, I mean, let's be real here, it's hardly possible due to human nature, right? But at least every state have to try to eliminate horizontal corruption. Otherwise, you might end up in a state that US is, for example, right now, when, I mean, corruption is even legalized, right? Because at some point, state there just stop fighting against it. And look at the US, by the way. I mean, the states are operating in any way they want. Los Angeles or California, let's say, was ruined, by the way, mainly by these corrupt officials there, right? Newsom and the rest. Los Angeles and San Francisco, I mean, these marbles of the US, right? One time have been turned into a freaking shithole. Sorry for my French, but that's what those cities really are now, and many others in California. Take a look at the New York, by the way. I see videos on YouTube, and I could not believe that this is not some TV show about some apocalyptic time or post-apocalyptic time, right? That's and I do have friends, by the way, in New York, for example, and I know firsthand what has happened to the city, right? People are freaking afraid to go out, by the way, in certain areas, right? After certain time, especially, and all that and much more, by the way. Situation is definitely much worse than we can even see on YouTube, right? All that is a result of corruption, horizontal corruption that is killing US, right? So to make sure that we're not going to end up in that their condition, that their situation, war has to be waged against corruption constantly, always, right? Without any mercy, by the way. I believe corrupt officials are, I believe, treat traitors, and they should be treated as a traitors, by the way. Either penalty have to be either death or forever imprisonment. I mean, that's it, man, right? Corrupt officials are and corruption is a most threat that Russia is facing, much more threat than NATO is or the collective West combined. These corrupt officials are much bigger threat for Russian safety and security, and safety and security of the Russian society. And I'm happy, by the way. I'm happy that we are observing this war on corruption, corrupt officials, and hopefully, in I don't know how long it will take, in a few years or That would be good. Hopefully in a few years, horizontal corruption gonna be liquidated, at least in most of the cases, right? And that will give Russia a great boost, by the way, for further development. And on this very topic, we have this report that acting deputy head of a Kursk region was detained, their high-ranking official, by the way, yet another. So security forces detained their acting deputy head of Kursk region, Vladimir Bazarov, said the acting governor of the region, Alexander Hinstein. He is a relatively new person, by the way, in Kursk region. He was appointed there just about like half a year ago, and he seems like he is very busy to eliminate corruption there, and their security service is actually supporting this fight. So early this morning, acting deputy governor, his deputy, by the way, Hinstein's deputy of the Kursk region, Vladimir Bazarov, was detained. Investigative actions are underway related to his previous place of work in the Belgorod region, where he held a similar position, deputy governor for construction. Their acting governor of Kursk region wrote on his Telegram channel, and yet again, by the way, it's nobody is guilty until proven otherwise in a court, right? So therefore, I'm not gonna go ahead and make some claims here in regards to this particular person, but well, investigators will do their job, and we will find out what is going on and what was going on. But nevertheless, I'm happy, by the way. I'm really happy to see this true fight, by the way. I mean, real war against corruption that is going on, by the way. I was always saying, without eliminating at least horizontal corruption, by the way, a country is under tremendous threat. And well, seems like leadership of Russia is on the same page, by the way, and they're leading this charge, right? Yet again, let's be real. As I said, to eliminate corruption completely is just not possible, by the way. Human nature is such that it's easily corrupted, right? Unfortunately. So therefore, I don't believe it's even possible or have been done anywhere in this world to eliminate corruption completely, but you have to fight constantly against it, right? And you have to eliminate at least horizontal corruption. That's for sure. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Hungarian foreign minister reacted sharply to Zelensky's bold attack on Hungary. Zelensky basically was mocking Hungary yesterday, and I'm a bit surprised that Budapest is tolerating this madness from Ukrainian Nazis and their fascists. I am surprised that Hungary did not yet send its troops to fight these Nazis, right? And at least to reclaim Transcarpathia region where ethnic Hungarians are living. Maybe sometime in the future, for sure. But nevertheless, I guess patience of Hungarian leadership and Hungarian people is running very low now in regards to these Ukrainian freaking Nazis, man. Their attack by the Ukrainian armed forces on Hungary's energy infrastructure should be regarded as an attack on sovereignty, said Hungarian Foreign Minister Peter Szijjártó, and I agree with him, absolutely. And therefore, because these freaking Nazis from Ukraine are attacking you, take action. Just take action. Invoke fifth article, by the way, if you want to. You are NATO member, isn't it? And test the NATO. You have opportunity there, right? Just statements are not enough, by the way. Kyiv regime not gonna listen to no statements from Budapest. Only language they understand is force, period. Anyways, we have a quote from Szijjártó. Hungary resolutely rejects the threats of the Ukrainian president. We consider sovereignty and the territorial integrity to be fundamental values of the international politics. Therefore, we respect the sovereignty and territorial integrity of every country, as we expect the same from any other country. He wrote on the social network Facebook. The minister noted that Ukraine's series of attacks on the security of energy supply should be interpreted as an attack on sovereignty, and called on Vladimir Zelensky to stop making threats against Hungary. And Zelensky, by the way, was in a Druzhba pipeline. You know, Druzhba pipeline that Kyiv regime targeted on numerous occasions. A few days ago was the last attack. And I believe Hungary is still unable to receive oil from that pipeline because reconstruction work is in place, right? It will take probably a few more days. Before this latest attack, only week before that, there was another one, right? And reconstruction work took also several days during that attack. And there was such cases previously too. And yesterday, Zelensky was playing with words, right? Druzhba in Russian means friendship, and the Druzhba pipeline is the one that supplies oil to Hungary, Slovakia, a number of other European countries, by the way. I mean, who knows where this oil from Hungary or Slovakia goes then, right? But anyways, Zelensky was playing with the words, and they're threatening Hungary that, well, Druzhba or friendship with Hungary is, Hungary should act accordingly. Otherwise, friendship would not work. And their friendship, that is Druzhba, right? Druzhba is a pipeline. He was referring to a pipeline. So he was threatening Budapest that if Budapest will, for example, take some actions, cut energy supplies to Kyiv regime, for example, then that Druzhba pipeline would not work permanently. That was the threat from Zelensky, right? And yet again, Hungary is a proud country. It's a proud nation, by the way, Hungarians, right? How they can tolerate this abuse from Ukrainian Nazis, it's beyond my understanding, for sure. And yet again, I don't think Siarto is watching my videos, but nevertheless, if I would give him advice, then that advice would be, you know what, stop playing around there, send your troops, by the way, and exterminate your enemies. That's it, man. That's it. Send your troops there and exterminate your enemies. Otherwise, they will not stop, and you will be hostage of the Nazis, Ukrainian Nazis. Do you want this? I don't think so. So therefore, use not just words, by the way, use force. And one day, it will come to it. It will come to it. I'm quite sure about it. TASS News Agency is also reporting that yesterday there was another exchange of POWs. 146 Russian servicemen have been returned there from their territory controlled by Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky, and 146 Ukrainian POWs were handed over in exchange. Some positive news. So there is at least some progress in terms of humanitarian aspects. Although head of Russian delegation during the Istanbul talks, Medinsky made a statement that, well, even though Russian side is open to continue POW exchanges, one should keep in mind that Kyiv regime is almost have no Russian POWs left to actually exchange. Right, very few, and obviously there is a high intensity battles, by the way, and there is instances when some Russian military personnel can be, might end up being wounded and taken prisoner, or end up in encirclement and taken prisoner. So this is unfortunately, as long as this conflict continues, they're gonna be POWs, right? But Medinsky highlighted that while Russia has thousands and thousands of Ukrainian POWs that express willingness to be exchanged, Kyiv regime is running low on POWs, and therefore next exchanges potentially may not be on such a scale, but on a lesser. But nevertheless, it is good that progress is happening, at least in a humanitarian direction. Also, dear friends, we have this report today that another political tourist went to Kiev, this time Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, arrived there to embrace the Ukrainian Nazis and mass murderers that are widely supported by the West. And also today, by the way, a little earlier, German finance minister arrived there in Kiev too, probably with some more promises of money, although Germany itself, by the way, I mean, is suffering big time, right? When it comes to economy, German economy is officially in a recession now, I believe. And while German social fabric is stretched beyond limit, German economy on its downfall. It's a third or fourth year straight, by the way, the German economy is in downfall. And while this is happening, German so-called political class is still very keen to prolong this proxy war as much as they can, and they are still supporting financially, militarily, these Ukrainian Nazis and their terrorists. When it comes to Norway, it's a bit different story. Norway is very rich with oil and gas, right? And they are making huge profits, by the way, especially now when globalists did their thing and destroy relationships between European countries and Russia. And Norwegians now, alongside American energy companies, are making quite a good buck, tons of money, basically on expense of European taxpayers, because Norwegian gas or US gas, by the way, or oil is, of course, significantly higher in price than Russian energy. And therefore, because Europe is more relying now on these expensive energy sources, inflation is literally unstoppable in European countries and cannot be stopped. It's just that's how it is, right? Also, dear friends, another country that's run by morons and puppets of the globalists, Canada, will invest 500 million in purchasing American weapons for Ukraine under the PURL program. The Ministry of Defense of Canada reported, and earlier, Canadian leadership also announced their allocation of $1 billion military aid package for Kyiv regime. Well, Canadians are also, by the way, not in a great place right now, isn't it? Most of the Canadian people, as far as I can tell, based on what I read from our friends from Canada, from their comments, and also on internet, well, Canada is on its downfall. I mean, big time, right? Prices are skyrocketing on such a scale that it's unimaginable, by the way, right? No one can afford to buy a home. No one can afford mortgage, by the way. I mean, prices are just crazy, and their inflation and this and that, right? And while this is happening, instead of being focused on your own country, on your own people, and serve your people, right? Canadian leadership is also engaged in prolongation of this proxy war against Russia. How long Canadians going to tolerate this nonsense, these criminals that they have in the government? I don't know. But I will just say, by the way, some 20 years ago, just 2 decades, man, Canada was considered by many, including myself, to be one of the top countries, definitely top 3 countries for living. And probably majority of our friends from Canada will agree on that 20 years ago, Canada was a very different country in a very different state. And now I would not consider Canada to be a place to live, even in top 20, by the way, right? So how long Canadians going to tolerate this craziness, man? I don't know. It's sad to see, by the way, decline of Canada. It truly is. You know, I always had a great sympathy towards Canada, and why people of Canada allow this to happen to their country, man? It's sad. It's sad. Of course, no matter how much money and how much weapons Canada or any other NATO member state, any other hostile state, gonna provide Ukrainian Nazis and fascists, they would not be able to turn the tide. They would not be able to achieve their dream about strategic defeat of Russia. But what they will for sure achieve is unfortunately prolongation of the war, which means more killing, more destruction, and also they will achieve quite effectively further decline of their own countries and further disturbances, in their own public, in their own society, where this social fabric is already stretched beyond any imagination, rather. Even in Canada, which was very much considered to be one of the most tolerant countries with one of the most tolerant societies, right? Even there, social fabric is stretched beyond the limit because people are stressed out, by the way, right? By many things. Anyways, few more news, dear friends. RIA Novosti is reporting the Chinese Foreign Ministry denies reports of a possible military deployment to Ukraine, which is a quite understandable statement, by the way. Earlier, as you know, and I report about it in my updates, there were rumors on internet. Western media was reporting, by the way, based on their alleged sources, that China is okay with sending their peacekeepers once military phase of their confrontation is over between collective West and Russia. But I said straight away that even though Russian and Chinese troops are conducting training and combined operations constantly, by the way, today, for example, maritime exercises in Pacific Oceans ended, right? There was exercises between Chinese and Russian navies for quite some time, and today these exercises has ended, and I'm quite sure in a couple of weeks' time another exercises will take place, right? So our troops are on regular basis visiting China, and Chinese troops are visiting Russia, and therefore no one would be surprised really if China would deploy peacekeepers into Ukraine. But I said straight away, I don't think this is going to happen, by the way. I don't think because when the Russian foreign minister shared the idea that security guarantees that West is talking about now constantly, security guarantees has to be, in these guarantees have to be involved China, US, UK, and France. He was basically articulating that, UN has to be involved one way or another whenever any agreements will be reached, right? Because even though we all understand UN is quite effectively a dead organization that don't really influences anything at all, right? Maybe with very few exceptions, but nevertheless, that's what we have. That's what we have, right? And therefore, Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov was pointing out that, permanent members of the Security Council, China, US, UK, and France, together with Russia, and he also highlighted that, of course, Russia has to be involved in that too, should be one way or another engaged in that security guarantees, because that's their permanent members of the Security Council. Russian Foreign Minister never said that troops from this country should be deployed into Ukraine. But Western so-called media, by the way, Western journalists, they have no education whatsoever, by the way. I mean, definitely not a proper education needed for a journalist. They are just morons, right? I don't even believe there is any even single true journalist in the Western MSM, only in the Western alternative media, by the way. You might, and you will find proper top-level journalists, of course, but not in MSM, by the way. And because this kind of situation, then of course Western media went to say that, Lavrov is greenlighting Chinese militaries and US militaries and others, right? France and UK, which was false. Just because they are stupid, by the way, these so-called journalists in the West, they went to push this crazy narrative, and Chinese foreign minister was forced to deny this. It spread like a wildfire, isn't it? And eventually Chinese foreign ministry came out and said, are you serious? Really? What peacekeepers, by the way? Who told you that? So Chinese foreign ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun said at the briefing on Monday that media reports that China is allegedly ready to send peacekeeping force to Ukraine are not true. During the briefing on Monday, one of the journalists asked the diplomat to comment on a report in the Welt. That Welt was one of the first who began sharing this nonsense, right? Chinese diplomat was asked to comment on a report in the World publication that China was allegedly ready to send their peacekeeper forces to Ukraine. And we have a quote here from diplomat: "Their corresponding message does not correspond to reality." He said, Guan Jiakun stressed that China's position on the Ukrainian crisis is consistent and clear, and that's it basically. Nobody, I guess, from our community was confused by these false reports in the Western media. I also expressed my skepticism that China or will send its peacekeepers, or if there even was any talks with China to send its peacekeepers. So most likely there was not even discussion of the subject, right? So therefore our community knew from the beginning, but public that only takes information from Western MSM probably gets misled once again. Dear friends, before I continue with dozens of other news that I have bookmarked for this live stream, let me just take a minute, if I may, and just highlight once again, as I do in every stream, that this media project of mine, with several channels on YouTube, Rumble, Telegram, and so on, only exists as long as I have your support. And if you like my work, if you want to see potential, this project to be saved, first of all, and then maybe even potential further development, then please consider to support her. You can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal or Boosty platforms. You can subscribe to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. Links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. You can use crypto if you are good with that. Also, dear friends, during the streams, you can use a super chat feature on Rumble, where my channel is monetized, or become a premium subscriber on Rumble. Everything counts, of course. All support counts to maintain this project and be able to continue to work full time on these channels and with these updates. Many thanks to everybody who supported and continues to support and keeps me in this field. Truly grateful, dear friends, for this absolutely unique opportunity to be here. So many thanks. Thank you. That's me said, dear friends. Let me continue with more news. And of course, you know that yesterday many media outlets reported about decision of Washington to transfer more than 3,000 cruise missiles with a range of up to 450 kilometers to give control their territory. And many of us, many people worldwide, I guess, were expecting some strong reaction from Russian side, right? But this reaction did not come, at least yesterday, by the way. I did not see any statements on that in any of their media platforms that I'm monitoring, literally nothing. And I predicted that maybe Russian side will just ignore the topic, isn't it? Because Moscow is engaged in some diplomatic work with Washington, and probably Russian officials don't want to impact these talks that are happening, regularly behind the closed doors. Probably Russian officials did not want to impact that talks negatively in any way, shape, or form. Maybe some other reasons are there, but there was no reaction until now. And report is that, as I said yesterday, that US has approved their sale of 3,350 air-launched ARAM cruise missiles to Ukraine. And this was reported initially by Wall Street Journal. And their contract, by the way, for this weapon system was signed on January 2024. And based on that contract, at least 1,000 these missiles have to be built, especially for a Kyiv regime, before end of this year. I mean, in 2 years since their contract was signed. And so I guess already hundreds of these weapon systems, these cruise missiles, have been built, and they're probably already transferred to Kiev control their territory. And so information itself is, of course, very serious, very important. This is not something that Russian militaries will ignore. Of course, Russian air defense systems, Russian Air Force, they already probably been briefed about tactical characteristics of these missiles, how to track them, how to effectively deal with this new threat that may be introduced to the battlefield literally in a week's time. Literally in 1 week's time, when latest Trump's ultimatum of 2 weeks ultimatum will expire. But nevertheless, on official level, neither Russian president or neither anybody else made any comment on this escalation, clear escalation from the Washington, isn't it? And if you are interested about this weapon system, what this cruise missile is, well, it's basically 227 kilogram bomb, right? Gravity bomb, by the way, that will be equipped with a kit, with a special kit that will have an engine, rocket engine, and that will exceed, that will give this bomb basically characteristics of the cruise missile, and range is up to 450 kilometers. These missiles can be launched from planes, and also can be launched from special platforms, because for example, US Navy allegedly has already employs the platforms that are well capable of launching these cruise missiles, and those platforms can be transferred to ground. I mean, it's technically speaking, it's a no big deal, right? So yes, no reaction from Moscow, at least for now. Maybe today media will report about some statements, some reaction from Russian officials or the militaries, and of course I will track the topic, and if anything comes up, I will share information, but nothing for now, which is yet again, I mean, maybe surprising on one hand, but on the other hand, maybe Russian leadership is still hopeful that they will be able to negotiate with the US leadership effectively enough to basically how should I say it, incentivize US leadership to pull out their country from this proxy war against Russia. And of course, if Russian leadership will be successful in that, that will be a huge win, by the way, against their globalists, against this evil force that our Western ruling class is. So maybe not to affect negatively current talks between Washington and Moscow, Russian side is kind of not downgrading the topic, but avoiding some strong statements in this regard. This is my explanation, personal explanation, by the way, because of course I have no idea why Moscow is not reacted as strongly as many expected on this clearly hostile step from the Washington, isn't it? I mean, no matter from which way you take a look at this, it's a hostile step. It's an unprecedented scale of escalation, because even Biden refused to do this kind of stuff. And now now Trump escalating, right, on an unprecedented scale. Anyways, maybe today we will see some statements, and of course I will bookmark those statements for next update. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that Zelensky, meanwhile, extremely emboldened, Zelensky and his criminal associates, emboldened by support of globalist control regimes in Europe, and at least partially also by new US administration, is refused to compromise for sake of peace in Ukraine. He's rejected all the initiatives from the White House, all the initiatives of the Trump, by the way. He just don't cares, right? So the head of the Kiev regime, Vladimir Zelensky, stated that Ukraine refuses to compromise in order to achieve peace. In a video address on the occasion of so-called Independence Day of this so-called Ukraine, he stressed that and that was yesterday, by the way, he stressed that the country never again in history will be forced to compromise. TASS news agency reporting. Zelensky expressed confidence that Ukraine would gain peace through security guarantees from the Western countries. However, he acknowledged their difficulties in negotiating on these guarantees, in particular due to funding issues. He wants more money. He wants more money, by the way. I mean, he's a filthy rich now, isn't it? Truly filthy rich. One of the richest persons in this world, right? On expense of taxpayers of the collective West countries, but he wants more. He just wants more, man. Maybe he wants to surpass Elon Musk in wealth. We don't know, and he might if West continues to send these hundreds of billions on year-on-year terms. This might happen. In his address, Zelensky also noted that Ukraine needs the European Union, but did not address the issue of their country's accession to NATO. By the way, he claimed in that video that they will reclaim Crimea, not just Donbass and not just liberated territories in Kherson and Zaporozhye region, in Dnipropetrovsk region, Kharkov region, Sumy region, but he went as far as to make a claim that they will be in control of Crimea too, right? That's the level of degeneration of this creature that Zelensky is, right? And that's with whom West is demanding Russian president to have a meeting and a conversation. I mean, really, with this degenerate? No way, man. It's not happening. I don't believe even for a second that Russian president will waste time to meet with Zelensky. No, man. But he is rejecting, by the way, all the initiatives of Trump, and I wonder if there will be any reaction from White House. Will Trump say anything about it, or does he even knows what Zelensky, and that is globalists, of course, what globalists and the globalist control regimes in Europe are talking about quite often through Zelensky. Does Trump even knows what's going on? I don't know, but there is no reactions, at least for now. Nothing. Also, dear friends, J.D. Vance, Vice President of US, went to give an interview through NBC or something, so-called media in the US, and stated that President Trump has applied more economic pressure on Russians to stop this war than Biden did in 3 years. And he's saying that that's how negotiations work. I disagree with him about how negotiations should be conducted. I don't think Vance is educated enough to have any freaking understanding what diplomacy is or conflictology is, right? He may be educated in some other fields, but definitely not in conflictology and diplomacy. It's just too obvious. But he's better. He's doing better than Trump for sure, right? Trump has no freaking idea about anything at all, literally, right? I mean, level of illiteracy of Trump is truly mind-boggling, right? It's just insane. But nevertheless, America First Forces chose Trump to be their spokesperson, basically, right? The representative in the White House. Maybe because Trump was in business of show for many years, right? And he knows how to play on the emotions of the public. That he knows probably, right? Quite well, and he's successful, by the way. I mean, he's a showman, right? And as a showman, he's clearly successful. Anyways, J.D. Vance was sharing his opinion with this so-called journalist from NBC or whatever. But I want to show you a clip, dear friends. I want to show you a clip of a conversation, short clip, And I want you to pay attention to attitude of this so-called journalist. Attitude of the journalist that is demanding, almost openly demanding, escalation with Russia. And that journalist, so-called journalist, is that stupid that probably has no freaking idea that if US will actually go ahead with their with full-scale escalation in Russia, then that journalist will die. J.D. Vance will die. Trump will die. Families of them will die. Everybody in US will die, and most likely everybody in Russia will die, and everybody everywhere will die. That freaking journalist has no idea what she's talking about, isn't it? And that's what the so-called media has become in the West. Tool of propaganda and the sabotage. That's what it is, right? And they have to be dealt, by the way. They have to be dealt with, and very harshly. If US or if America First Forces want to save their country, if they want to save their people, they have to deal with this tremendously destructive force that so-called MSM has become in hands of globalists, neocons, and whoever else is in control of them, Zionists and so on, right? Just take a look at this short video, by the way. I mean, it's just insane attitude of this freaking so-called journalist. Let me give you this clip.
Pressure on Russia to do anything if you're not right now imposing new sanctions. How do you...
You see, she's attacking J.D. Vance. Why you are not doing this and why you are doing that? Why you are not escalating basically with Russia even further? This insane freaking creature that calls herself a journalist, right? This cannot be tolerated. This is not journalism, by the way. This is not in journalism. I grew up in journalism. I know what am I talking about. This is not journalism, by the way. This is a destructive work. This is a sabotage, right? Let's start
again. Where
exactly
is the pressure on Russia to do anything if you're not right now imposing new sanctions? How do you get them to a place of getting to the table with Zelensky?
You see, I mean, she's saying, where is the pressure? This dirty animal has no freaking idea or ignoring the fact that US already, based on Trump's statements, by the way, already spent $350 billion on this proxy war, right? Does she understand that US is directly engaged in a war and we are very close, by the way, very close to a full-scale freaking war that will kill everybody on this planet? How insane these elements are. And I mean, it's shocking. It's shocking, by the way. I mean, what the hell is going on there? It's insane, man. And she wants further escalation, clearly, and attacks J.D. Vance for not escalating further. What the hell, man? Someone should lecture these idiots and explain to them what is really going on. This doomsday clock, by the way, has never been closer to midnight as it is right now. Not even during the Caribbean crisis, when US and Soviet Union almost started their nuclear war. Unbelievable, man. Someone has to explain to the US public how close we are to an extinction level event, and that any talks about further escalation is actually crime. Because only way West can further escalate is to basically begin provoking full-scale war, right? Because they did almost everything else. There is nukes left. So what they want? Nuclear war? Crazy, by the way.
And stopping to drop bombs.
But Kristen, I think that question betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are. The president has applied aggressive economic leverage, for example, the secondary tariffs on India, to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy. He's tried to make it clear that Russia can be reinvited into the world economy if they stop.
I mean, when it comes to J.D. Vance's comment, by the way, you see, I mean, they still perceive this freaking nonsensical idea that Russia is a gas station, oil economy and this and that. And this is wrong, man. I mean, he is a vice president, right? He is a vice president, should be better educated, should know better about it. To say about Russia that Russian economy is an oil economy, it's just it's factually inaccurate, by the way, right? And misleading of the public. So why Vance is repeating this nonsense? And then he's saying that, well, Russian economy to get re-engaged in the world economy. What you are talking about? Russian economy is engaged in the world economy on a scale that is unprecedented. Just because Russia has no trade with Europe or much trade with Europe and US or the collective West does not mean that Russia is isolated from the rest of the world. The rest of the world is 80% of humanity. And Russia is cooperating with 80% of humanity, and only 20%, right, controlled by globalists and Western ruling class is a hostile to Russia. And even then, by the way, maybe minority, maybe tiny minority, but nevertheless, millions of people, even in the Western countries, are well enough informed to understand that Russia is not their enemy, and they are not hostile to us. So what Vance is talking about, really? I mean, come on, man. Unbelievable. Let's start from the beginning.
Is the pressure on Russia to do anything if you're not right now imposing new sanctions? How do you get them to a place of getting to the table with Zelensky and stopping to drop bombs?
But Kristen, I think that question betrays a fundamental misunderstanding of where we are. The president has applied aggressive economic leverage, for example, the secondary tariffs on India, to try to make it harder for the Russians to get rich from their oil economy. He's tried to make it clear that Russia can be re-invited into the world economy if they stop the killing, but they're going to continue to be isolated if they don't stop the killing. The president has applied more economic pressure to the Russians to stop this war than Biden did in 3 years. So the idea that we're not doing anything, we're already doing things right now, and this is how negotiation works. You do something, you talk to the parties, you try to see if there's a meeting of minds. Again, we believe we've already seen some significant concessions from both sides just in the last few weeks. We're going to eventually be successful, or we'll hit a brick wall. And if we hit a brick wall, then we're going to continue this process of negotiation, of applying leverage. This is the energetic diplomacy that's going to bring this war to a close.
Well, J.D. Vance is also off topic there, isn't it? I mean, he's very poorly prepared for being vice president. And this is bad, by the way. This is just really bad. U.S. Society definitely deserved better, but yet again, this is something that, first of all, they have to work out, isn't it, Americans? But nevertheless, did you see, dear friends, even though Vance was clearly off topic, he's still pushing this crazy narrative that Russia is some gas station, that kind of stuff. They are trying to kind of downgrade the importance of Russia. They are trying to insult Russia, humiliate Russia constantly, right? This is and they think they will gain some more political points by doing so, which is wrong, by the way. All they do is embarrass themselves with this rhetoric, right? After all, who wants to know will know already that oil revenues, by the way, right, or energy revenues only make up to like 20% of Russian overall income in federal budget. So from where this 80% is coming from, if Russia is purely some gas station or something, so from where this 80% of income of country is coming from, maybe from IT technologies, maybe, and Russia is good in that, by the way, right? Russian programmers are one of the best in this world. Maybe from agricultural sector, maybe from high-tech technologies. One should keep in mind that Russia is biggest, Rosatom, by the way, for example, right, is the biggest company and number one company in this world when it comes to building nuclear power stations. And they do all over the world, right? I mean, from where this 80% of income is coming, then if Russia is a gas station, and if Russia has only oil economy, how long they gonna lie to public, man? How long? It's bad, man. It's just too bad, right? But anyways, I mean, okay, J.D. Vance is working on a U.S. public, maybe, I mean, or probably he knows better. He should know better, right? But they also are kind of hostages of their own propaganda, isn't it? And U.S. public was told so many times that Russia is a freaking oil economy, and that's it, by the way. Don't think about Russia as a superpower. Just a gas station, that's all, right? They were pushing this crazy, insane narrative for so long that they cannot take back now these statements. They are becoming hostages of their own propaganda, right? So that's one thing that we should keep in mind. But on the other hand, take a look at this so-called journalist, by the way, how she is acting. She is attacking vice president of the country, being mad that US is not escalating with Russia further than it already does. So indirectly, by the way, I will assume she wants I don't know, she wants a full-scale nuclear war. Does she even understands that this escalatory ladder will lead eventually, if we don't stop, to the nuclear exchange and end of everything? I don't know, maybe she is just that stupid. And it's not just the J.D. Vance that she demonstrated how stupid she is, right? I don't even know the name of this journalist, but I guess this personality is one of the top so-called journalists on ABC or whatever freaking channel that is, because Vance gave her interview to her, and Lavrov also gave interview to her for God knows what reasons, man. That's a whole different topic to discuss, right? So let me show you also. Let me also show you, if I have it here, by the way, when, yes, that's it, right? She's talking to Lavrov, by the way, and a question was about Zelensky or something, but take a look at the attitude of her, right? To the end of video.
President Zelensky is the legitimate leader of Ukraine. President Putin doesn't recognize him as the legitimate leader of Ukraine.
No, we recognize him as de facto head of the regime. And in this capacity, we are ready to meet with him. But when it comes to signing legal documents, no, you want to have the entire picture, just part of it, which suits you. When we come to a stage when you have to sign documents, we would need a very clear understanding by everybody that the person who is signing is legitimate. And according to the Ukrainian constitution, Mr. Zelensky is not at the moment.
Okay, well, he is the democratically elected president. Mr. Foreign.
You see, to the end, this so-called journalist is bringing in her false narrative that, well, he is democratically elected. First of all, Lavrov didn't speak about elections during the which Zelensky allegedly was elected, right? After 2014, there was no legit elections in Ukraine to begin with. Let's be real here. After US orchestrated bloody coup d'etat in Kiev, there was no legit elections on Kiev-controlled territory, period, man, period. Because you cannot have legit elections when Nazis will freaking kill you, by the way, if you dare to do anything that they don't like. And thousands of people on Kiev-controlled territory disappear from 2014, right? Because they dare to oppose these freaking Nazis and this criminal terrorist regime in Kiev. So, first of all, she is factually inaccurate, even in terms of election about Zelensky. But at the same time, did Lavrov spoke about the elections, or he said factual information about current state, that Russia acknowledges Zelensky as a de facto leader of that freaking regime because that's what he is. It's a factual, right? Zelensky is considered to be number one there. Yermak considered to be number two, and then goes, right? Based on influence, that's the factual information. Other, by the way, based on Ukrainian constitution, second is a head of parliament or whoever, you know. But Zelensky is a de facto head of that regime. And Lavrov said that we acknowledge this and we are ready to work, right? But when it comes to signing any agreements, topic of legitimacy will rise because it's an important topic based on Ukraine's constitution. Zelensky is no longer legit because martial law that Zelensky is declared during the martial law based on Ukraine's constitution, only mandate of parliament can be prolonged. Only mandate of parliament, by the way. That's what Ukraine's constitution says. Not mandate of president. It's factual. You can read it, for God's sake, right? But I mean, this NBC's so-called journalist is so freaking out of touch with reality that probably she has no freaking idea that Ukraine even has a constitution, man. I don't know. So that's the attitude, isn't it? If this is media, by the way, then I don't know. I'm an alien from Andromeda Galaxy. If what we have seen in the West as a MSM is a journalism and a media, true media, then, well, I'm claiming that I'm a freaking alien from Andromeda, man. You know, that's how it is. And the whole different topic is why Lavrov is wasting time talking to these morons, man. I don't know. One might say, well, he wants to get his point across the viewers of the NBC, but I believe viewers of the NBC, majority, and viewers of all the other Western MSM, majority are so brainwashed that they wouldn't understand anything that Lavrov will say, or any other objective commentator, by the way, any other leader that will try to share opinion would not be taken adequately because those people, audience of NBC, CNN, and the rest of the garbage, majority of them being brainwashed on and zombified, basically. They are like zombies now, right? They are physically, I think, unable to face the reality, to acknowledge the truth. That's the level of brainwashing that the so-called media did, right? And that's why I'm saying that if US leadership, if America First forces really want to save their country and their people, well, they should take care of this so-called media, because this is not journalism, by the way. Western MSM is a tool in hands of neocons, globalists, Zionists, whomever, but they are not in the service of people as they should. And that's what journalism is. You are serving the people. You are servant of people, right? That's all. If you don't want to serve people, public, then go find some another job. But if you call yourself journalist, then do your job and inform people about truth, right? But tell this to these so-called journalists in the West, man. So, yes, that's what I wanted to point out here, dear friends. And this is important. This is important because it seems like, at least partially, US is getting closer. These America First forces are getting closer to their understanding of the points that I was making for quite a while now, isn't it? That these so-called media in the West and in US in particular have to be dealt, because this is not a media. This is a tool of sabotage, tool of hostility, right? That has to be neutralized. It's a hostile institutions in hands of hostile groups, hostiles towards the ordinary people. And maybe by chance and randomly, or maybe because America First forces in US are realizing that they have to do something about it, US president is constantly, current president, by the way, we may criticize Trump for many things, and I do, right? Whenever there is something to criticize for, I do it, right? But you know, time to time, he does some stuff that actually makes sense, right? And for example, he was very critical of the so-called media in the past, and he's escalating further his rhetoric, and maybe even some action is going to be taken, rightfully so. And that will benefit the US public tremendously, by the way. I truly believe in that. So ABC and NBC should be taken off their air, Trump said. US President Donald Trump said on a Sunday that the news channels ABC and NBC should have their broadcasting licenses revoked. Trump has long accused major media outlets of spreading lies about him and working to undermine his presidency on behalf of their Democrats. Well, maybe he has some personal reasons to be unhappy, but yet again, hopefully America First forces realizing that they have to do something about this so-called media that is becoming tool of sabotage and destruction in hands of neocons, Zionists, globalists, and so on, right? These powerful groups that have no care about US or US citizens or anything like that, right? Hopefully, they understand the full picture, right? Even if Trump is motivated by his personal row with their MSM, right? But anyways, to continue, in a post on a Truth Social, Trump blasted ABC and NBC as two of their absolute worst and the most biased networks. They should lose their licenses for their unfair coverage of Republicans and or conservatives, but at the minimum they should pay up big for having their privilege of using the most available airwaves anywhere at any time. He wrote, he has previously labeled both networks political pawns of the Democrats and well, take their action. Take their action. I think our US president has enough authorities to initiate process of either nationalization of these destructive tools in hands of extreme forces that neocons and globalists are, or the Zionists, right? I think he has enough authority to initiate process. So either nationalize those networks, right? Not just networks, by the way, not just TVs and radios, but do the same with the press. That is no longer can be considered as a media. Nationalize and then transfer to actual journalists, to be led by actual journalists. And I mean, they're not going to struggle to find those journalists, by the way. Take a look at the alternative media. Can you imagine level of improvement on ABC or NBC or CNN, by the way, if this media is run by, for example, guys from Gray Zone, if they are in charge of policies, media reduction policies there. Aaron Mater and Max Blumenthal. Or what about former editor-in-chief of Guardian? He was, I believe, goodness me, I forgot the name. He lives in Brazil, right? He broke the story with Snowden. Take him, give him an opportunity to lead these media outlets, and you will see what true journalism is and how true media outlets should operate based on what principles. And I can go on and go on and go on, by the way, you know. So you don't have to go far or too far. I mean, take a look at the US-based alternative media outlets. By the way, you will see great journalists there, great journalists with great experience, including with experience of leading media outlets, right? You would not be able to recognize, by the way, this ABC and NBC if they are run by true journalists. That's how it is. So maybe some changes are about to happen in this regard in US, by the way. I'm a bit stressed now that I cannot... Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mater are from Gray Zone, by the way. Kate Helper, by the way, works does great projects with Aaron Mater too, and there are many others, man, many others. I could not rest until I will remember the name, by the way. I'm gonna Glenn Greenwald, by the way. Glenn Greenwald, right? How could I forgot his name? So yes, there are plenty of people in alternative media that can do a great job, by the way, great job leading these so-called media outlets. Nidish Kumar is commenting now, the one leave it. No, I could not rest, by the way. I had to remember. Sometimes it happens. You just, because maybe you are tired or something, but you remember just very simple stuff, right? Just losing focus for a second. It happens, by the way. So yes, I mean, Glenn Greenwald is the one that I was talking about. He broke her story with Snowden, by the way. We all know that, isn't it? And he has his own media project now and does great work there. So yes, this is the way to go, I believe, right? But at least it seems like America First forces are realizing that they have to do something about these hostile groups, right? These hostile entities that Western MSM has become, and hopefully they will. All they have to do is nationalize and then give it to be run by true journalists. That's it. Okay, that's been said, dear friends. Let's continue with some more news. And Middle East is next topic. RT is reporting that Israel strikes Yemen is a presidential compound, and there are many other areas, by the way. Israel said it has carried out airstrikes in Yemen, hitting a military compound that housed the presidential palace in response to Houthi missile attacks. Well, Israeli fascists, by the way, are not happy enough killing just Palestinians in hundreds of thousands. They want to kill everybody, right? And so they are killing Yemenis too. They are killing Syrians. They are killing Lebanese people. They want to kill literally everybody because for them, for Israeli fascists, none of us are humans. We are at best some subhumans in their sick mind, right? And in their sick ideology, or we might not be even considered to be humans. That's the Israeli fascists, by the way, and their ideology, right? So they are killing everyone they can, everywhere they can, right? That's fascist Israelis and fascist Israel today. Right, and for quite a while, this change did not happen in a day or two. I mean, this fascist Israel was built for decades to become this disgrace that it is right now. Right, disgrace of humanity. Fascist Israelis and Israel itself is absolutely right. Disgrace of humanity for whole of its history, by the way. Right, and I can give you some short videos, by the way, about actions of these Israeli fascists. So this is one of the videos of aftermath of these strikes. Some massive explosions. Some channels reported up to 20 explosions were heard in different parts. There are a lot of videos that are circulating with their tremendous fires and destruction, and reports are that at least 6 people, civilians, were killed as a result of this attack. Israel is not going to be happy with that. Of course, they love to kill thousands, right? Israeli fascists love to kill thousands. I mean, to kill 6, 10, 20, 100 civilians, that's for them not good enough. So unfortunately, they will continue, most likely, their criminal attacks on Yemen and Yemenis people, as they will continue to their criminal attacks, their genocidal attacks on Palestinians and Palestinian people, and then on Lebanese people, and they are killing Syrians literally on daily basis too, and provoking divide of Syria on sectarian and ethnic lines. Right, Israel is very much engaged in destruction of Syria from their get-go, right, from the beginning, by the way, of this Syria story. Right, they were engaged there, and they were trying to demolish that country, and unfortunately, they come very close to success. There is almost there is no more Syria left, right? Some parts are controlled by some groups, other parts by other groups. They all hate each other, they all kill each other. And well, that's what Israel and West wanted, right? That's what they wanted. And on topic of this criminal activity of Israel, by the way, well, we have this report that Netanyahu's office backs Lebanon's effort to disarm Hezbollah. So Israel is ready to support Lebanon in its efforts to disarm their Shiite Hezbollah movement in order to achieve a secure future for both countries, as well as to gradually reduce its army presence in southern Lebanon. The office of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday. And by the way, did anybody had any doubts that behind this initiative of proxy regime, Western and Israeli proxy regime in Lebanon to disarm Hezbollah was Israel and the West? Did anybody had any doubts about that? Of course, Israel is behind this, and they are now openly supporting this idea, and by doing so, they are openly supporting civil war in Lebanon. That's what they do, by the way, civil war on religious lines, and Lebanese people hopefully will stay strong and united because they have first-hand experience what sectarian war is, right? Israel and US and others, as the other hostiles, have already provoked civil war there, isn't it? And Lebanese people should not and hopefully will not allow this to happen again. And any attacks on Hezbollah by this proxy regime of Israel in Beirut is to be considered as an Israeli attack and the attack of the Israeli allies, collective West, that is. Mainly, although unfortunately, fascist Israel has allies among Gulf states too, in the Middle East too in general, right? Which is a shame, but that's the factual information. They do have allies there, right? Believe it or not, these fascists that kill hundreds of thousands of Palestinians have allies among Muslim countries in the Middle East, which is unimaginable how this can be, but it is the case, right? They have allies in the collective West and some other parts of this world too, which is insane. How anybody with their dignity and their heart and humanity can be supportive of the fascist Israel and what they do. I don't know, man. I don't know. Right? So this is a clear warning for Lebanese people to be united, because Israel is seeking civil war there, and they might actually provoke this civil war if Lebanese people, Shiites, Christians, Sunnis, if they will allow these hostiles to trigger confrontation between them. This cannot be allowed to happen, man. Or Israelis will genocide all of them. Israel will genocide all of them. One by one. That's how it's going to be, right? RT is also reporting that, well, when it comes to the Middle East, I mentioned Syria a couple of times already, and somewhat surprisingly, Syrian new banknotes will be printed in Russia, which is strange because usually these proxy regimes, whenever they are established, they are transferring these rights to print the money to metropole, right, to their capital that they are a proxy of. In this particular case, it could be Ankara, first of all, because this Damascus regime now, led by al-Shara, whatever his freaking name is a Turkish proxy, right? It could be even Israel, because al-Shara and all the other jihadists and terrorists are quite closely cooperated with Israel also, and still cooperating. By the way, reports are that this Damascus regime give her quite permission, unofficial permission to Israel to occupy certain parts in southern Lebanon on permanent basis, and they are no longer have any ambitions to reclaim Golan Heights that was taken from Syria by Israel decades ago, right? And so, for whatever reason, this terrorist regime in Damascus, that's what they are, by the way, terrorists and mass murderers, they want their money to be printed in Moscow. Okay, Syria will print their banknotes for its redesigned and revalued currency in Russia, Reuters reported on Friday. Well, okay, but I'm not happy that Russia has any deals with this regime, man. I'm not happy about it. I understand that, well, we have to acknowledge objective reality, and these criminals are the force now in Damascus, and you cannot ignore that, right? It's just objective reality. It is what it is. Yes, but nevertheless, and we should keep in mind that Russia has military bases in Syria still. I also don't understand why now we need these bases there. They should be withdrawn, right? In my personal opinion. But nevertheless, Moscow, for whatever reasons, are forced to have some what should I call it, man? Some contacts with the Damascus regime, this terrorist proxy regime of Turkey, Israel, and collective West, and yeah, Syrian money probably will be printed in Moscow. I'm not happy about it, but yet again, no one is asking my opinion. If it was up to me, I would withdraw Russian bases for sure, and the Russian diplomats, all Russians, by the way. I will evacuate all Russians, and I will just forget about existence of that territory. As long as the local people will not rebel against terrorists and not rebuild their country under name of Syria or under whatever name, until there will be actual legit government, or I would not have any business with them whatsoever. That would be my take. But yet again, it's not up to me, isn't it? Okay, a few more news, dear friends. U.S. Navy's amphibious assault ship, USS Iwo Jima, leaves Norfolk, Virginia. Reportedly, this vessel is heading toward Venezuela, and if so, by the way, this is going to be second big assault ship, right? Second big amphibious vessel that is deployed towards the Venezuela. I can give you a video, by the way, of this transit of this ship. So at least a couple of thousands of Marines must be on board there. You can see clearly helicopters, bunch of dozen of helicopters, and also strike planes, by the way, US versions of the British Harriers. You can see on the backside of this deck there. I mean, it's easily recognizable that these are AV-8. That's how US calls them. US designates them AV-8 or something like that. But it's British Harriers, by the way. Vertical takeoff and landing planes. Vertical or short takeoff and landing planes. I mean, on here, by the way, on the backside of deck, you can clearly see at least like 4 to 5 these Harrier planes. It's a force to be reckoned with. I believe Venezuela has either Su-27s or maybe even Su-35s, by the way. So if those planes are piloted by profis, of course they're gonna obliterate these Harriers in a single flight, by the way. But oh, now I can see commenter Wovin is commenting. Wow, I thought the USMS replaced all their Harriers with their F-35Bs. I was a bit surprised too, but I mean, if you take a look at their video here, by the way, I mean, let me pause here. I mean, they clearly look like a Harriers. This is not F-35, it's a Harrier, like AV-8 or whatever Americans are calling them. So yeah, they have some, and well, it seems like we are getting closer and closer to yet another war that US is about to start, right? This time with Venezuela, and seems like US is quite actively encourages Guinea, by the way, to escalate with Venezuela. Let me open the map, by the way, if it works, if it will work. Now let's take a look at their area from map standpoint. So Venezuela is becoming definitely hotspot on this planet. So let's go here and let's look at this, by the way. So this is Guinea, by the way, neighbor of Venezuela, and two countries do have territorial issues. Venezuela claims that certain oil-rich parts of Guyana or Guinea, or how you say it in English, belongs to Venezuelan people. Of course, Guyana is opposing this, and they almost went on war, by the way, just a few months ago, isn't it? And now I have read a few articles with their escalatory statements from Guyana, right, towards Venezuela. They are welcoming activization of US in this area. And so one of the ways how Washington may provoke the war, and they do have several ways, right, by the way. Before, they had their totally puppet regime, totally controlled regime in Bogota, in Colombia. They were always in a position to provoke war between Venezuela and Colombia, right? But now Colombian leadership is a bit different. They are acting, or they are at least trying to act independent, right? And they do have some issues with Washington because of that, right? But well, there is also this Guinea or Guyana, right, that can be used and will be used by US to escalate with Venezuela. And if they manage to provoke military conflict, then US will just take a side of Guyana, right, and get engaged militarily directly this way. Also, US may, of course, come up with some, any sort of allegations, by the way. They already are making claims that Venezuela is like main country when it comes to drug trafficking. They are blaming government of Venezuela for being absolutely engaged in drug trafficking. And by the way, I don't know. Maybe they are not. But if just because Venezuela is used for drug trafficking does not mean that US has a right to go and start a war against country, right? In that case, what about Mexico, by the way? What about Mexico? I mean, all the main cartels, most powerful cartels that are operating with this drug trafficking stuff are based on Mexico. So US gonna go on a war with Mexico too? Or what about China, by the way? US constantly blames China for fentanyl exports to US, right? So US gonna go and fight China too now. No, this is just a pretext, by the way. They might use these allegations towards Venezuelan government that they are engaged in drug trafficking to directly attack Venezuela, or they might use their assets to destabilize country internally and create some fake government and call US and let them call US Army in, invite US Army, or they can use neighbors of Venezuela like Guyana to provoke military conflict, and then US might get engaged this way. In any case, by the way, US military should get ready to a tough fight, because I don't think Venezuelan people gonna surrender. No matter do they like Maduro's government or not, but I don't think Venezuelan people gonna embrace idea of becoming a U.S. colony again, right? So they will fight, and U.S. military should get ready for that. Do they have training to fight in jungle? When last time they undergo such a training? I don't know, but they will need one. Also, dear friends, we have this report that Georgian radicals, by the way, these Georgian radicals are all either directly controlled by the West or indirectly controlled by the West, or Western funded NGOs and that kind of structures. So these Georgian radicals attacked U.S. citizen, by the way, and almost killed that U.S. citizen while mistakenly thinking that that person was Russian. They were ready to kill Russian, and the only reason why this person that was attacked by these psychos survived is that eventually they find out that person was a U.S. citizen, tourist, by the way, that walking around Rustaveli Avenue, right? At the time of this demonstration of these freaking animals, man, that these Western-controlled garbage elements are. And they are animals, by the way. I am from Georgia. I know what am I talking about. These bastards should be jailed, all of them, by the way. All of them. Or at least there should be sentenced to work as a cleaners on Rustaveli Avenue for next 10 to 15 years. On Rustaveli Avenue and all the other streets, by the way. Tbilisi street should be clean as a mirror by these fucking animals, man, that turn central parts of the Tbilisi into freaking public toilet. That's what I would do if it was up to me, right? But current leadership of Georgia, Georgian Dream government is just too tolerant, by the way. This Georgian Dreamer government is trying to play in a Western game with the Western rules, by the way, and same time win, and this is not possible. Serbian government tries to do the same, and they are losing there in Serbia, and Georgian government might eventually lose in Georgia too, if they will continue to tolerate this garbage to be active, these assets of the foreign countries, right? So a group of Georgian radicals attacked a U.S. citizen on Rustaveli Avenue. This is Central Avenue, by the way, in Tbilisi, where Georgian parliament is based, and many other buildings. And first of all, Kashveti Monastery, by the way, right? If you have been there, you know what am I talking about. Great church, right, on opposite side of parliament building. And where parliament building is, by the way, there was a church also before, but Bolsheviks destroyed that church and built parliament building. So a group of Georgian radicals attacked a U.S. citizen on Rustaveli Avenue, mistaking him for a Russian. The incident was resolved after police intervention. A Vzglyad correspondent in Tbilisi reports an eyewitness, former chief of the Georgian General Staff, Levan Nikolaishvili, spoke about what happened on Monday night. About 50 to 60 protesters, most of them under the influence of alcohol or drugs, they were shouting, cursing, spitting. One of the most aggressive shouted, "Look, a Russian is coming." The crowd attacked the tourist, and if the police had not intervened in time, they probably would have killed him on the spot. The police saved the tourist from the drunken crowd. I approached this young man who was very scared, and here is the surprise. It was U.S. citizen Luke Garrett, who had come to see the site of Georgia. Levan Nikolaishvili, yet again, former head of Georgian General Staff, by the way, military, said on social media, according to former chief of the General Staff of Georgia, at the present, all those who have continued to rally on Rustaveli Avenue since November of last year for their European choice of Georgia, so-called, are either unhealthy or drug addicts or drunkards, and they're homeless people. They are a ruthless scum. Thanks God and the police who averted trouble. A radical crowd wanted to beat up an American citizen, he wrote her, and basically to kill him. The post has generated a large number of comments. Users demand an end to the insanity on Rustaveli, appeals to their authorities to end the loyalty and to put an end to what is happening in the city center, called for sending the guilty to prison, and note that even if it were Rustaveli Russian tourists, such an attitude does not reflect the mentality of the Georgians towards the guests, which is true, by the way. If you are a guest, there is a very big guest culture, by the way, and with exception of some morons and the bastards, nobody in Georgia would dare to act inappropriately towards the guests, because I mean this is like in a code, right? We are learning this since the birth that I mean stumari htisa, that's a word we say, right? Guest is from God. That's the attitude, by the way, and only freaking morons and their complete bastards and disgrace will act against the guest for no reason, with their disrespect or with aggression, right? And so I can understand completely that people on social media was very angry about this incident. They were calling for the government to end this nonsense and the madness on Rustaveli Avenue, and to basically finally take action against these foreign assets, this Western-run scam. They have to be, yet again, either in a prison, or, by the way, I have a better way to teach them a lesson. Let them clean the freaking streets, by the way, for next, 10 years might be too much, but for next 5 years, so that they will realize that it is not good to act on behalf of foreign country. That's it, man. Teach them a lesson. You don't have to, don't send them to prison, by the way. Just sentence them to clean up the streets, man, and work as a cleaners for next 5 years. That will teach them a lesson, right? And all their foreign NGOs, all the NGOs, by the way, that are financed from West or from East, from whenever, just shut them down, man. Just close them. If society wants this NGO or that NGO, society will itself finance it, right? And if society don't want it, then why should this exist, right? Why this organization should exist just because they have received millions and millions from and then US, UK, France, Germany, Italy, you name it, man. Do I have a point, by the way? If NGOs are needed, then society itself will finance it. Georgian government can create a fund to help NGOs, right? NGOs that are actually needed, that actually have support of public, but may be struggling financially. Government can help somehow. They can give them a office, right? So they would not have to pay rent, for example. That's a big help. Or something else can be done. But don't let foreigners, foreign institutions, foreign forces to influence your domestic politics, by the way, right? And to turn central part of Tbilisi into freaking public toilet. What the hell, man? So maybe some action will be taken, by the way, maybe by Georgian government. Otherwise, ordinary people, by the way, in Tbilisi, they're going to fed up with this nonsense. and they're gonna take action, and they might actually kill them all, man, or beat the crap out of them. Some of them might die during the process. Locals may just fed up with this freaking nonsense, and they might take action, and the government don't want that, right? That government don't needs or don't wants how you said, some assault. They don't want some uncontrolled processes, right? So better they take action until people will really get pissed off and begin smashing faces of those freaking traitors. That's what they are, by the way, right? Also, dear friends, Vzgled newspaper is reporting that Indian Foreign Ministry gives advice to those who don't want to buy Indian oil, and he has very good advice, by the way. Very good advice. Indian External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, legendary foreign minister, by the way. You all are familiar, of course, with this person. Definitely one of the few heavyweights when it comes to diplomats on a geopolitical scale right now. So Subramaniam Jaishankar gave advice to Western countries that are not happy with Indian oil at the Economic Times World Leaders Forum. We have a quote here. It is funny when people in American administration who support business interests reproach other people for doing business, said Indian External Affairs Minister Jaishankar. He criticized the US for targeting New Delhi's energy ties with Moscow and questioned why the same criteria were not applied to China and the European Union, the largest importers of Russian crude oil and Russian LNG, respectively. And this is true, by the way. I mean, why US is targeting India and not targeting China then, or the EU? Because China and the EU actually buy more oil and more gas from Russia than India does. Right? It's a legit question, isn't it? We know answer. We know answer, by the way. You know, US only uses topic of Ukrainian crisis and their oil topic in regards to India to justify their criminal actions, right? In reality, what they are trying to do is to force businesses, by the way, that have manufacturing plants in India to move those plants to US, and also they are issuing a strict warning to companies that are planning to move their factories from China, for example, or Europe, where production is becoming tremendously expensive and many manufacturers are looking for other place in this world. So US, by targeting India, is also issuing strict warning to the countries in Europe and also to China, right? To move their plants not to India, not to Indo-Pacifics, basically, but to US. That's what is happening. US wants manufacturers to move their plants from Europe, China, and India, and all the other countries to US. That's it, by the way. And they chose India to strike as a demonstration, right? And I think everyone understands that. Everyone understands that it's not about oil, by the way, and it's not about Ukrainian crisis whatsoever. Washington uses these topics just to justify this injustice that Washington is committing towards the New Delhi. All they want is to force companies that already transferred the manufacturing plants to India to move them now to US, and to force companies that are considering to move their plants from Europe or to China somewhere to move those plants to US also. That's it, man. It's a hostile takeover, right? To say it in business terms. I don't know. Is there any such a term in business? Probably it is, right? Hostile takeover. That's what US does. That's it, man. Otherwise, of course, the question of the Subramaniam the Jaishankar is absolutely legit. I mean, if you are honest, then why you are not taking same action in regards to China and the EU? Where is the logic, right? And by the way, also Jai Shankar were to say that if you have difficulties buying Indian oil, crude oil, or petroleum products, just don't buy it. No one is forcing you, right? Europe buys, America buys, and if you don't like it, don't buy it. Times of Indian newspaper quotes the Indian foreign minister as saying, and this is true, by the way, if you're not happy with it, then just don't buy it. But European countries do buy, by the way, and India is the biggest exporter of oil and oil products, I believe, to Europe right now. And their Indian companies, Indian as a state, makes good buck, good money on this business, being a middleman between Russian energy companies and European countries or others, right? And well done, by the way. It's good for India, it's good for Russia. Both sides are happy, and that's how it is. And if anybody has some issues with that, they can refuse to buy oil from India if they can, by the way. Other question is, can they refuse? No, they cannot, right? Because there is only so much supply of oil and oil products and the gas on the market, isn't it? And only so much suppliers. It's quite a tight business in this regard. RIA Novosti is also reporting that Tianjin summit to be the largest in Shanghai Cooperation Organization's history, Chinese ambassador is claiming. So the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin will be the largest since its founding. Chinese ambassador to Russia, Yang Han Yui, stated in an interview with the RIA Novosti, this year, the meeting of the Council of the Heads of the States of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states will be held in Tianjin from August 31 to September 1. By the way, I'm quite sure I heard about this city only because this summit of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And take a look at the picture on your screen, by the way. It's a massive modern city, isn't it? And to my shame, I only hear this name Tianjin just because of this summit. I don't even know where geographically this city is located in China. I can tell you about Beijing, by the way. I can tell you about Shanghai, but Tianjin, I have no freaking idea where this city is there. Yet again, to my shame, by the way, I should know better, right? And I will take a little more time to learn Chinese geography because some 20 years ago there might be some villages there, and now it's a multi-million megapolises, right? On the places of villages. It took only like 2-3 decades, and truly, by the way, some villages become megapolis cities. So anyways, this year, the meeting of the Council of the Heads of States of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states will be held in Tianjin from August 31st to September 1st. More than 20 heads of states, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, as well as the heads of 10 international organizations will take a part in it. This summit will be the largest since the founding of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which demonstrates their common expectations of member states for the sake of deepening cooperation and attracts greater attention from the international community, he said. And well, he has a point, right? Okay. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, just a reminder, dear friends, that Shanghai Cooperation Organization as an international association was founded in 2021. It includes India, Iran, Kazakhstan, China, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Tajikistan, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, and Belarus. Wow, excuse me. Observer countries are Afghanistan and Mongolia. Partner countries are Azerbaijan, Armenia, Cambodia, Nepal, United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and Sri Lanka. According to the aide to the Russian President Yuri Ushakov, this week Vladimir Putin will go to China on a 4-day visit. Among the other things, he will also take a part in Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. And yes, I mean, RIA Novosti is also reporting on a separate news that Putin will travel to China this week for a 4-day trip. It's going to be interesting. We're going to hear some great volume of information about projects that were signed between businesses of Shanghai Cooperation Organization member states and many other things. Also, dear friends, we have this report that well, EU calculates how much Ukraine received from frozen Russian assets. So more than 10 billion euros, by the way, have been transferred to Ukraine this year alone. Profits, from the profits of the Russian frozen assets that are held in Europe. Moscow has said that dealing with these assets is constitutes to the theft, which is true, of course. I mean, this is Russian frozen assets and profits of Russian assets, right? So if you take them, you are stealing. It is what it is. I mean, there is nothing to argue there, isn't it? So this year alone, Europeans, by the way, European so-called elites stole 10 billion euros of Russian assets to finance Ukrainian Nazis and their fascists to prolong this proxy war. And there are many commentators, by the way, on internet, on alternative media, even I believe economical experts too, at least on several occasions, I believe I have watched statements that European bureaucracy is actually stealing not just profits from the frozen Russian assets, but assets themselves too. And at this point, no one really knows what is left from these frozen assets. There is such an opinion also on internet. I don't know what is the reality, but opinions, there are different rumors, isn't it? And by the way, also I will end new segment on this news that payment with a Mir card will be possible throughout Iran by year-end. This was stated by Iran's envoy to Russia. So payments with Russian Mir cards will be possible throughout Iran by the end of this year. Iran's ambassador to Moscow, Kazem Jalali, said in an interview with TASS, asked how Mir card currently works in the Republic, or whether payments are available only in capital or throughout the country. He said, we are currently planning to make payments available throughout the country. We have already completed 3 stages and there is one more to go. And we will do this as well by the end of 2025. So Russian citizens that will go to Iran for a business trip or as a tourist will have an easier time, by the way, of course, when it comes to payments, right? Russian Mir cards will work perfectly well, I hope, right? And of course, by the way, Iran is a country to visit, especially if you love history, by the way. I mean, one of the oldest birthplace of one of the oldest civilizations, right, in this world. So especially for people that love history, Iran is, of course, a jewel of this planet. And then many other countries, by the way, of course, don't get me wrong. In this particular case, we are talking about Iran, right? So some positive news there, some good news. And I mean, how many times did I say that hopefully BRICS, by the way, BRICS will come up with alternative financial and banking system, alternative payment systems, alternative currency, and finally this world will get rid of, or will at least have opportunity to get rid of extremely weaponized, from dependence on extremely weaponized their banking and financial system of their collective West. We need alternatives, right? We need alternatives, and it is good that there is a bilateral work between the countries when it comes to payment systems, but we need world systems, right? We need systems for whole world. And BRICS has to work on this direction, and they do work in this direction, but unfortunately, there is with very little results for now, which is truly upsetting, but it is what it is, right? So this is it for a news segment, dear friends. Hopefully you did find it informative and useful. And if so, please like the video if you have not yet. And after the stream, leave some commentary. This might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And I guess there was no donations during the stream or super chat. Otherwise, Anya would tell me. So therefore, I will join community chat for a little while, and that's about it for this stream. I can see Nikos is asking Levan. Europe is sending 9 billion from their actual Russian frozen assets to Ukraine. In our last conversation, I agreed that BRICS is doing nothing. Why aren't they reacting to the Europe doing this? Well, I just reported, isn't it, that just this year, Europe is sending or stealing basically 10 billion euros of Russian profits, although it's not actual assets, but profits from their assets, right? They already steal 10 billion, and they will steal more, right? These Brussels bureaucrats and the political class in Europe. Yet again, there are rumors, as you are also pointing out, there are rumors that this European bureaucracy is stealing frozen assets too, not just profits, but frozen assets too. But on official level, there was no such a statement made yet, right? Either by European Central Bank or by Brussels or by anyone. So therefore, it's only speculations that they are stealing frozen assets too, right? Probably they do, but yet again, without official information, we just cannot know. But they do steal profits from the frozen Russian assets. And if you are asking why BRICS is doing not protesting about this, well, I believe number of BRICS member states, officials in all BRICS member states, by the way, have condemned policies and condemned stealing basically Russian profits from the Russian frozen assets. It's not just BRICS member states, but also central bank in Europe, by the way, because they are financiers, right? They are more focused on business side of matters, right? They are not that ideologized, and their so-called politicians are in Europe, and therefore even Lagarde, head of central bank in Europe, on several occasions made a statement that this is bad. What Europe is doing is bad for Europe itself, for Western financial and the banking system, right? They should not steal Russian assets, but no one listened to Lagarde, no one listened to other experts, not just from the Central Bank of Europe, but from IMF, World Bank, because yet again, ideology comes first when it comes to collective West, right? And one of the leading waves in Western ideology is Russia hate. Anything against Russia goes, right? And they steal assets. If you're interested why some strong steps have not been taken by BRICS member states to deter Europe or the collective West, well, that's a question on $1 million, by the way. I mean, I myself have a question why BRICS member states or the countries, not because they are BRICS members, but because BRICS member states are leading the charge towards the multipolarity, right? And that's why I am mentioning BRICS, not because I expect BRICS organization itself to provide Russia with some military assistance or something. No, what I'm saying is that these countries that are in the BRICS are leading the charge towards multipolarity, which is tremendously important, I believe, for everybody, because a multipolar world will be and hopefully, should be and hopefully will be more just world than we have right now, or we had under their unilateral control of West, right? And I myself have a lot of questions why these leading countries in this world outside of the collective West are not helping Russia in military terms, even if Moscow did not officially requested it. I mean, at least they could offer the assistance, right? But consistent policy of the capitals of the BRICS states. Yet again, I'm mentioning BRICS not because I expect from BRICS something, but BRICS members are the leaders, isn't it, towards the multipolarity. So that's the only reason why I'm mentioning BRICS as a organization of group of countries that are leading the charge, right? So capitals of BRICS member states should at least offer more resilience towards the West and stronger stance, and at least should offer some assistance through military standpoint to Russia, right? Even if Moscow is not asking for it, but they know, isn't it, that Russia is fighting their fight too. Russia is alone fighting against this evil force, united evil force that Western ruling class, Western elites are, that are threatening everybody. Western societies, Eastern societies, and just everybody, right? They are existential threat for humanity. I'm 100% convinced in that. And I don't have an answer, Nikos. I don't know why Beijing, New Delhi, Brazil, or Pretoria, why they did not offer military assistance. Manpower through different means, either directly or through private military companies, or military equipment, by the way. This is a high-intensity war, isn't it? I'm quite sure, by the way, if China offered their 1,000 armored personnel carriers, Russia would take it. Russia would take it, because they would be, handy on the battlefield. We might have enough our equipment, but again, this is high-intensity war, right? On daily basis, there is a threats from our NATO member states that they're gonna obliterate Kaliningrad and they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. So more weapons will be good, right? So why China, that actually can provide literally 1,000 infantry fighting vehicles? I mean, there is no issue for them in this regard, right? They just can take 1,000 APCs from any armored personnel carriers or infantry fighting vehicles or IFVs from any stockpiles, right? They don't have to send like brand new, but it would be a great gesture, isn't it? It would be a statement of China, for example, that, you know what, we're not going to allow this evil force that Western ruling class is to win this struggle, right? To dominate over the humanity. So we're going to stand with Russia. That's what is important, by the way. It's not necessarily about the weapons or the manpower, but it's about statement, right? That you are standing next to Russia all the way. Same goes for India, by the way. Same goes for Pretoria. Same goes for Brazil. Same goes for every other capital that is advocating for multipolar world. That was my point when I was saying that where is their assistance? Where is this statement, by the way, that they stand with us? That might on its own even play a deterrent role, right? For and because these globalists, by the way, I mean globalist controlled regimes are all over the collective West. They might, they might they might be forced in this case to think that, well, just look at this, man. Whole world is against us here. So better we de-escalate. Otherwise, they're going to run over us like nothing, right? But unfortunately, for whatever reasons, these strong statements have not been made, and all the capitals are saying that they are neutral. How you are neutral, by the way, when there is existential struggle, by the way, between humanity and the evil force? How you can be neutral? I don't get it. I don't know how you can be neutral, man. But yet again, point is why these capitals, political class in these countries, are not willing to designate Western ruling class as a evil force. Once they designate them as a evil force, right, then it will be easier to take steps on this foundation. But why they did not take this first step is, I don't know, unknown for me. Maybe because political class in these countries are infiltrated by Western assets. Maybe that is the case. One should keep in mind that rumors, by the way, about link between current Chinese leader, for example, Xi Jinping, and the Rothschild clan, which is financiers, by the way, of the globalists, right? Financiers of the European aristocracy. I mean, there is for more than a decade now these rumors, isn't it? That it was the Rothschilds that used their influence to promote inside the Communist Party this figure, Xi Jinping, man. I mean, this is rumors, right? I am not claiming that this is true or not, but some rumors are just that, rumors, and some others are actually true. You just find out about it later, right? When it's no longer rumor, but actual truth. So I don't know. Maybe political elites among countries, leading countries towards the multipolarity, have been infiltrated by Western elites, globalists, and they're using their language now, or their control means, to not allow true unity of this world. Maybe this is the case, Nikos. I don't know. But I think more stronger responses are needed, for sure, in regards to all the criminal activity that Western ruling class is committing. And yet again, we are talking about Western ruling class, by the way, right? And we should keep in mind that Western societies are hostages of the Western ruling class. They have no say whatsoever in terms of policies that these Western political elites are conducting. They have literally no say in it whatsoever. No one is asking people. So therefore, we should always keep in mind that it's not the Western public is enemy. It's a Western ruling class is enemy, right? And the Western public is a hostage and a victim of this evil force, as all of us are, right? And we have to get united and fight, by the way. We have to get united and fight. Otherwise, Western ruling class will not stop, by the way. That they will sacrifice literally all of humanity for their own sick ideology and agenda and sick interests. They are a disgrace of humanity, isn't it? I mean, complete degeneracy. I mean, if you want to see complete degeneracy of a human being, then look no further than Western political class, by the way. Western so-called elites, political, financial, and so on, right? Western aristocracy, by the way. That's the lowest point of degeneracy that exists, right? That's how disgraced, how despicable they are, man. In my personal opinion, these Western so-called elites. So also Nathan Dunning is commenting, BRICS is a not military blocker like NATO. True, I'm sure it will be one day. Well, if BRICS will survive, then maybe at some point, not necessarily BRICS, maybe something else will be created to protect basically multipolar world, and to make sure that all the nations, by the way, big and small, are protected. Because yet again, we are against domination of one party, right? We are against unipolarity, right? Because it's not good. We see how devastating that is in last 30 years, isn't it? When Western world was literally unchallenged. They were doing whatever they want, and they killed millions of people all over the world. They destabilized dozens of countries. hundreds of millions of people become refugees, and there are tens of millions of them end up as a result, by the way, in Europe and in other Western countries. And now, as a result of this rapid change in demography and in social fabric, this social fabric is stretched beyond limits, right? And there are many countries in Europe are literally on the brink of civil war, right? This is all consequences, I mean, and many other things, isn't it, on the scale of this world. So we don't need no unipolarity. We don't need any one particular group to dominate. We need just world, right? So sometime in the future, probably we have to have not probably, but we definitely have to have a certain institution that might have military capabilities too, to protect everybody, big and small, right? So that no one would dominate over the other, and all the decisions should be made based on mutual respect and interests. So in the future, I can see a possibility of emergence of a military alliance that will protect multipolar world, because this world, by the way, right now, it seems like on a trajectory of being divided on a Western world, right, collective West, and the rest of the world. And the Western world has NATO, Western world has this AUKUS, right, Five Eyes. There is a military and intelligence organizations created already, right, that Western world has. But rest of the world, we don't have nothing like that. There is a CSTO, by the way, that Russia is a part of, Collective Security Treaty Organization, that is built by former Soviet Republic. But this is, this is dead organization, by the way. It's only time it actually demonstrated its capabilities was when there was a destabilization attempt in Kazakhstan, and Russia, Belarus, they deployed troops quite rapidly through CSTO, and did manage to stabilize situation. I mean, no doubts about that. But there is no any other success story behind the CSTO, right? And I remind you the difference that none of the CSTO countries, literally none of them, maybe with exception of Belarus, because Belarus maybe directly is not engaged in this conflict, but thus provides Russia with their assistance, right? After all, Russian troops are based in Belarus. So Belarus can be exception, but no other country from CSTO provided Russia with any assistance. So why we are keeping this organization? Why Russia is paying for this organization? And I have no freaking idea, right? But with the exception of this CSTO, that is some paper tiger, seems like rest of the world outside of collective West don't really have a defensive alliance, pact, organization that will unite us all, right, to defend ourselves. And we need to have such organization. It's just objective reality. So someday, maybe. I mean, if US, by the way, if America First Forces will somehow take out US from this proxy war against Russia and get free from globalist influence, right? That can be game changer, by the way. That can be game changer, right? Because in that case, we would shift this trajectory towards the divide of the world. If US is on the side of multipolarity, at least partially, then things gonna change big time. That would be game changer. And therefore, by the way, when Moscow is trying to work with Washington, to distance it from the globalists, I applaud this work. It might work, it might don't, right? It's a process. But if Moscow succeeds in that, that's going to be a great victory for all of humanity. If US is moved away from globalists, from globalist influence, and if US is actually run by people that basing their policies on the best interests of US public, right? That would be a great deal and great victory for US citizens and for the rest of the world, because now, by the way, as long as US is used as an enforcer by globalists, neocon Zionists, I mean, it's a danger for everybody, right? And if nothing changes, then trajectory towards the actual divide of this world on the two sides, it seems inevitable. It's a 2.5 hours difference, 2.5 hours, and therefore, if I may, I will end this live stream now. My apologies if I missed your question, but it's quite long stream. I didn't expect this stream to be this long, by the way. If you want to have a discussion, on Rumble, you can use, I don't know if Rumble Super Chat works for like 10 cent or 1 cent or 20 cent. Do you have to donate at least $1 necessarily? I mean, you can use those Super Chat, by the way, and if there will be the Super Chats, I will react at least on 3-5 questions or 10 questions. But without Super Chat, you have to go through all the comments. It does take quite a lot of time, isn't it? So anyways, dear friends, hopefully you did like the update. Hopefully new segment was good enough for you. And if so, please like the video. That might help to reach wider audience. And in case you want to support, last week was quite weak, by the way, in this regard. Yesterday we were unable to reach goal during the fundraising, and well, if this week is going to be as weak as last week, then I have a problem here. But nevertheless, if you want to support, you can do it. All the links are on this within the description box and in the pinned comment. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and take care. See you tomorrow.